Alright, so after the success of last week, now we're going back into the Fast and Furious franchise. The one that more or less made Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel break up. We're going in two different directions now, with this being the one that pushed back Fast and Furious 9, which apparently is in the process of happening now, and I'm assuming they still plan on doing the 10 movies thing and then they're done. I don't know how many directions this wants to go in, but I'm kind of afraid to find out. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Yes, so today I saw the new Fast and Furious movie. I'm so sorry, Adam McKay, but so as far as this goes, obviously this isn't. If this was like another, just in general, its own sort of startup to a franchise thing, where the main characters are Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham, typically I would have been all over this. But as you may have seen a couple of years ago, The Fate of the Furious did not leave a good taste in my mouth at all. Because of the whole. There's the obvious thing they just absolutely refuse to address, which is everybody wants to be Deckard Shaw's buddy now, despite the fact that he killed Han. But on top of that, also, maybe there was a way to get around that a little bit by having him team up with Hobbs, since Hobbs wouldn't have been as close to Han as the others. I guess this movie's not looking to make excuses for it, so I don't know why I'm even trying to. So when it begins, it pretty much begins like a fucking sitcom, with the two of them waking up at the same time, to basically show us that while they're two totally different people, they're also kind of the same person also, hence a winning combination, despite the fact that one of these used to be a masterclass villain, but whatever. So I guess that's the appeal to an extent, unless you've been watching the whole thing, but they do this thing, the whole split screen thing, where they do kind of show visually that, in what is, I guess, an interesting way, where you've got Hobbs on one side of the screen, on the left side of the screen, and as he goes about his normal routine, there's like an orange tint to it, almost like he's back in Michael Bay land or something. And then on Shaw's side of the screen, everything's like tinted really blue and looks really dreary. And they're pretty much doing the same thing, more or less. And then when it gets time to them to go into action, they switch that up. And Hobbs has a fight scene in this pretty darkened sort of look about it, while Shaw's fight scene is a bit more well lit. So like I said, trying to basically say, oh, they're such opposites, but they're also kind of the same too, I guess. So that's how we start, and there's something involving Cyborg Idris Elba trying to unleash a virus that is imprinted in the body of Jason Statham's sister. As if that even matters. It's just a MacGuffin to get us to the action scenes, which usually in these movies means that we're just gonna say, hey, we're not gonna go too much into it, we're not gonna think too much about plot. There's just this thing is all you have to worry about. We've got it and someone wants it, or someone's got it and we want it, and just building up so we can have spectacular, awesome action scenes. And of course, as I said, I'm not Fate's biggest fan whatsoever. I did drag myself to watch it again last night, just to see if there was, because I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I figured I should, in case there was some sort of connection I was going to miss or something. Not really. I really didn't need to do that. But it did remind me that Fate does have some pretty nice action scenes in it. Particularly that some of them are obviously overblown and dumb, but I really like that one in the middle, where they like hack into all the cars and that's like a whole army and the whole thing. But there's nothing really like that. There's not like a great centerpiece sort of thing in this one. The action is just kind of... It just goes from point to point, and none of it, and it's all just kind of boring. Like, being, like, really loud and frantic and having a lot of stuff going on, does not necessarily make an exciting action scene, if there's not some sort of craft, I guess, in how it's put together, and this movie is a clear example of that. So, going into that also, I also think that, talking about the rest of the series, I've made it clear a few times that I really loved Furious 7. And I think how much I love Furious 7 is why I really hate what they're doing with the Shaw character. Because it's like, the whole thing of throwing Luke Evans out of the plane, and then having Shaw come in and retaliate with Han, and then he's the villain of 7 was like the perfect setup to me. I really loved that. And to be totally honest with you, as awesome as Jason Statham is, Vin Diesel saying, the street always wins, and like it opens up and like swallows Shaw, I honestly think that should have just killed him, and then we went on with a new story. But no, they really wanted to drag this out. And then, of course, obviously, by the end of Fate, he's, like, running around with a baby and shit. And it's... yeah, so the more this series goes on, the more they fuck over Furious 7. Because now when you watch Statham and Furious 7, you're only going to see the idiot Shaw that's in these movies. But whatever. So they go on that, and yeah, of course, like I was saying with the rest, there's going to be the banter back and forth. And while we're not necessarily putting up with Tyrese's annoying bullshit or something, there's still, you can still tell that those other movies have banter between a whole group of people, and this one just has two. And you can tell it really suffers for that, which sucks, and shows you kind of how bad the writing, if you want to call it that, is that Dwayne Johnson is known for being this endless sea of charisma. And Jason Statham, especially, is like one of those cases where for a while there he was just kind of like the stone-faced action guy. If you hadn't seen any Guy Ritchie movies, like if you'd started on The Transporter or something. But then it was, the Guy Ritchie movies aside, another movie that really showed me that, and this isn't even a movie I like very much, but the movie that really showed me that Jason Statham had a little something extra that he could put into these action movies was Parker. Where there's like that whole segment where he's pretending to be like the Southern car salesman or whatever the hell that was. And it's like, yeah, okay, so he can like actually do more things with this and put a lot more charisma into his roles. And you can see that they're trying to take advantage of that through this character. But it's really not working the same way at all. So the banter just ends up being them going back and forth. And it seems a lot more like sort of the gag reel you'd see during the end credits, where it's like, where they were doing multiple takes, but they knew they weren't quite there yet. So it's like the scenes that we actually see in the movie feel like they're about 5 takes away from actually being something good. Where it's like, this still felt like them warming up, like improv banter, but they weren't quite getting there, and then that's what's just in the movie. And there's a lot of that. This movie is like 2 hours and 18 minutes or something, and it feels every damn bit of it for shit like this. This is one of those movies where, like, every time somebody is just trying to be funny and failing, the 2 cameos come to mind. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this warning out there. If that's something you've heard about that you don't know about and you kind of want to go into it fresh, and you haven't seen it as you're watching this, I'm going to go ahead and say what those cameos are. Even though they weren't advertised, and they were apparently a surprise until last night. I didn't know going in who they were, I just knew that apparently there were cameos. And of course, when I hear that, I assume it means people from the other movies in the franchise. But no, this movie wants to do something else. Something really ill-advised, but this movie does a lot of ill-advised things. So, I am now going to mention the cameos. The first one being my favorite fucking person in the entire goddamn world, Ryan Reynolds, who works for the CIA and used to know Hobbs at some point, and he comes in as the one that gives him his mission. And yes, you better believe it is just endless, endless scenes of him doing his Ryan Reynolds thing. And by the time, it's moments like this when you see Ryan Reynolds sitting in a diner by himself and he's on the phone with Shaw, and he's just doing this whole thing about, I think this diner that I'm in is empty. I think it might be closed. Is anyone laughing? Am I being funny yet? And you watch scenes like this and you're like, this is a scene in a movie that is 2 hours and 18 minutes long. And this is the stuff that's in it. And so once you realize that's how we get to the length, that's only going to slow the pacing down even more. But if that's not enough, if it's not enough that Ryan Reynolds gets 2 scenes, it's not like the Seth MacFarlane thing where it's like he's there once and then he's gone and doesn't even have any lines. Because Seth MacFarlane knew how to do that. Nobody fucking knows how to do the cameos anymore. God bless Seth MacFarlane for his Ryan Reynolds cameos and, like, Ted and A Million Ways to Die in the West. Because you can't fucking do a comedic cameo anymore without them. They keep fucking coming back, and that's not what a cameo is. But Ryan Reynolds has 3 scenes in this. He has 2 in the movie. He's got the first one, then he's got that stupid diner scene I was talking about. Then he's got a whole mid-credit scene all to himself, where he's just saying shit. And it's supposed to be funny because, haha, it's Ryan Reynolds. Hey, he's that guy that did that one thing we laughed at once. So everything he does and says, him standing in a fucking room just eating time, is funny, apparently. So we got 3 scenes of that, and then, as if it can't get any worse, from people who think funny improv banter is just speaking quickly and getting nowhere, and the presence of them alone is supposed to be the comedy of it. Hobbs and Shaw are sitting on a plane and they're arguing with each other, and the air marshal just materializes out of thin air and says, "Hey guys, I'm the air marshal, you need to be quiet." And you better fucking believe it's Kevin Hart. Twice, again, he has to come back. They had to give him something to do, but before that, you have this scene on the plane where he is doing his Kevin Hart thing, where he is talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And this is a character that just happened to appear, and then forces himself to do something so he can get another scene. But what they're doing in this first scene is, not only is it bad enough that it's just him talking about stupid bullshit getting them nowhere, is they completely and directly lift a scene from Infinity War. Yeah, it's not enough they cashed in on the Civil War thing with Fate of the Furious. No. This time, they throw Infinity War into the mix shamelessly. There is a whole... Okay, as if... This is towards the end of the scene, too, so Kevin Hart's already been going on and on and on and on, and you're wondering, this is why the fucking movie's so long, and this has nothing to do with anything. This is nothing more than an excuse to say, hey, Kevin Hart's in the movie. I'll bet you didn't expect that to happen. And then, by the time you've had time to say that, he's still going and going and going. And then finally, when it seems like the scene should be over, he decides that he's gonna try and be big and bad around Hobbs, so he's gonna put on a deep voice. And then, Statham or Hobbs or whoever calls out and says, like, "Why are you doing that with your voice?" And he's like, "I'm not doing anything with my voice." And he's like, "Yeah, you are." And he's like, "No, this is my voice." Does that sound familiar? That is the direct... That they lifted the fucking dialogue almost verbatim from the scene between fucking Quill and Thor in Infinity War. And that's what they waste 2 hours and 18 minutes doing. They watched this movie after it was done, and everybody at fucking Universal and the director and whoever else, the producers and all that, watched this and were like, yeah, this is reasonably in this movie at this runtime. There's no reason to cut any of this. All of this is relevant. All of this will serve a purpose. And to their credit, I'm sure there are people who will laugh all the way through this scene just because it's Kevin Hart, or just because it's Ryan Reynolds. So maybe they're serving the audience that wants this, so good for those people, I guess. But I really think there's better things you could be doing. Like, for instance, maybe going on the whole action. So you've got stuff like... well, there's a whole really fucking dopey fight scene the first time Hobbs meets Shaw's sister. And that's intercut with a Shaw fight scene that's too fucking dark to even see. And then it's also, a lot of it looks really, like, fake. And when I say fake, I don't necessarily mean, like, unrealistic, because of course it's going to be unrealistic. That's the point I'm making, though, is that's kind of what this franchise does, is it takes the extremely over-the-top and unrealistic, but they show it in a way that makes it look like it's really happening. And that's the entertainment value of seeing something so ridiculous, is that they make it look like it's actually happening, even though we know there's no universe where it possibly could. And there's a lot of, like, visible CGI in this one, and a lot of the times when people are driving, you can kind of see a green screen effect. And there's even, like, pretty much every time we see Idris Elba's bike, It just looks like this little CGI contraption. But then there's stuff when they just kind of cop out altogether. So we were talking about, this is the same franchise. Let's take a moment to love, again, the scene in Furious 7 where the cars parachute out the back of a plane, which is an incredible action scene. I really love that scene. So, and then last year, we had Mission Impossible Fallout, where the very beginning of the movie, before we have time to breathe, that movie begins with a halo jump that we see happen in real time. They really filmed it. That's Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill really plummeting to the ground. And so this movie has a halo jump in it. At least that's what they tell us. But what actually happens is, okay, so you got, this is a series that's known for like its big centerpiece action scenes. Because obviously the parachuting scene in Furious 7 goes to a whole bunch of places before that scene's over. And like I said, in Fate of the Furious, at least it had the middle scene, even if I don't care for the movie as a whole. So this one's going to have a halo jump in it. And since we just saw what Mission Impossible Fallout did, it's like, okay, I'm game. What's the Fast and the Furious franchise going to do with this? Can they top Mission Impossible? Probably not, but let's still see what they do. I'm sure they're going to do something really spectacular anyway. Let's see. So, they eject out of their planes, they start to fall to the ground, and they like start to drop, they go woo, and then it cuts to people talking. Like Idris Elba has like a dialogue scene with Shaw's sister. That scene happens, and then we cut back to the halo jump as they're landing. This movie had a halo jump in it that it skipped entirely. So, what does that say? Because the rest of the action is poorly put together hand-to-hand combat scenes, or like 10 cars, you know, chasing each other, and they flip and they blow up sometimes. Which in this franchise is old fucking news. And like I said, it's a lot more CGI heavy than it seems to have been before. So, not much to look forward to there. So, that's the thing too, is it's like you go into these movies kind of expecting what they're good at. Because it's like, you know, you watch these movies and you're like, the dialogue is bad and stuff like that, and the story is really cobbled together in this sloppy way. But you're like, well, I'm not even here for that. I'm here to watch the movie do what it does best, and that's the car stuff. And the movie's pretty much always delivered on that. But this one is like working in reverse. It seems like it's barely trying when it concocted these action scenes. And then you look at the dialogue, and it's like, now, here's, normally I would say, you know, oh, just embrace it. It's part of the whole, it's part of the cheesy action movie to have bad dialogue. Why not? It's like, and it's probably intentional, so yeah, just go with it. But I can't give that excuse for this because you can tell that the dialogue actually is trying to be clever. Like, you know, they throw in stupid one-liners on purpose because that's the kind of movie it is, but this one is actually trying to be clever. There's a whole thing, I don't even know how to explain this bullshit, where Hobbs is interrogating Shaw's sister, and he's comparing the way they're talking to a dance. Like, he's trying to, I don't fucking know. And so because he says, he's like, hey, you know, it's a whole build-up to it, too. He's like, do you dance? And she's like, oh, I don't know, do I? Or whatever the hell. And then he's like, oh, well, you dance this way, I'll dance this way. And then she says something he doesn't want to hear. She doesn't give enough information. He's like, oh, you just stepped on my toes, try again. And it's like, they're trying to do something clever there, and it's not coming through at all. So they would have done a lot better just sticking with their shitty one-liners. Because that's the environment, that's the atmosphere, but they're trying to somehow elevate their dialogue while not trying enough with their action scenes, which, like I said, is the complete and total opposite of what this fucking franchise is. So it's basically not, it's not saying, we'll do this one thing amazingly, and the rest will be like, okay. They're just failing at everything. There's just, we'll do this thing this way, and they fail, and it's like, well, we'll do something different, we'll try this thing this way, and they fail again, just from all sides and all aspects of it. When I was watching some of this fucking dialogue, too, most of Ryan Reynolds' dialogue is making fucking Game of Thrones references, which, much like Ryan Reynolds himself, it's like, people will say, hey, I know what that means, so that's funny to me. It doesn't matter what he's saying, it's Ryan Reynolds saying Game of Thrones. I am programmed to think this is the greatest thing ever. So, eventually I get to a point where I'm like, alright, Idris Elba, save us. And it's like, there's one point where the dialogue's going and going and going, and then, like, the whole window shatters. And I know Idris Elba's about to come swinging in. And I was like, yes, Idris Elba, save us, please. And then I caught myself saying, I'm watching a Fast and the Furious movie, where we've got people like Luke Hobbs, and, you know, Jason Statham's here, you know, he's supposed to be a fucking villain, but he's Jason Statham, so great. I should not be watching a Fast and the Furious movie and telling the villain to save us. The real villain. Fucking Cyborg Idris Elba comes in. He's the one that's trying to wreck the world. He's the one trying to kill everybody. And when I see him in this movie, I'm saying save us. That's not how these movies work. But, whatever. So, and Elba's pretty wasted, too. Like, he kind of gets to do his badass thing, but for the most part, he's under a fucking helmet and being all CGI'd up or whatever. So all of that is obviously a huge, letdown. So, and then this is also one of those movies where I talked about how a lot of the time is eaten up by it trying to be funny. There's the whole old-ass joke where they're going through the airport, and everybody has a new identity, and everybody has a new little costume, and a new little get-up, and all that, and they're gonna go through the airport undetected. But haha, Statham has given Dwayne Johnson a funny name. So when the guy at the airport behind the counter says this name, I swear to God, there is a laugh break. When a character says something funny and there's just total silence while they wait for the audience to stop laughing so they can continue the riveting dialogue that they don't want to miss a word of. It's that. And there were probably maybe 15... We were in one of the smaller theaters. The big theater was the next showing over, but there was maybe like 15 or 20 people in there. And it was uncomfortably silent. And I don't think this is going to be the main reaction. In a full theater, I'm sure everybody will eat this up. Contagious laughter and all that. Group experience, stuff like that will probably help it out a lot. But just the few of us in this little theater, I couldn't even tell if people liked the movie or not. Because it was just so quiet. And it's like they weren't hitting those beats that the movie made spaces for them to make sure they did. But it doesn't matter. So, then we get a whole bunch of bullshit about Hobbs goes home to his family, where we meet a bunch of stereotypes and cliches, and then there's a whole turmoil with him and his brother Cliff Curtis, where there's a whole point where he's like, oh, this thing is broken, and this thing could be the thing that either, I don't fucking know, it either stops the virus or contains the virus or controls the virus, I don't fucking know. It's something that's broken that needs fixed. That's all that matters. And he's like, oh, there's only one person in the entire world that can fix this, and I need to go home to do that. Oh, boy. So he goes to Samoa, and Cliff Curtis is there. And he's like, after his mom stereotypes it up, he finds Cliff Curtis, and he's like, hey, dude, I know we've had our problems, but I need you to fix this, because the world will end if you don't. Our entire island, including our whole family, will be wiped out if you don't fix this. And his brother has to do the whole, no, you betrayed me, I'm not doing anything for you. And this goes back and forth. And then Hobbs is even saying, dude, listen, read my lips. The fucking world will end if you don't fix this thing. And he's like, nope, you turned on me, brother. And it's that old, and that goes on. That's also eating up this 2 hours and 18 minutes for a long-ass time. And then it's even, he even tells him specifically, it's like, hey, you know, our mom will die. Our family will die. And he says, well, I would rather die than help you. And it's like, well, this is the most selfish fucking movie character I've ever seen in my life. But I'm sure they'll work past their differences, and they'll make amends, and then he'll like, okay, I fixed this. I saved the world. Are you happy now? So that's the kind of... So that, I guess, is supposed to be more of the... I would say comedy, but no, they really get serious with the whole... This is Fast and Furious we're talking about. Of course, they're super duper serious about the family thing. They're just really... I don't even think they're embracing it. I think they're doing the family thing sincerely and don't realize they're being made fun of when people reference it. That's what's going on here. So we've got that whole thing. Then we've got the whole Shaw thing. I didn't even mention that Helen Mirren, for some reason, comes back to play his mom again. But anyway, so we got the whole thing with Shaw and his sister. And his sister saying shit like, she like squints her eyes, looks in the distance. This is for real, I'm not even exaggerating. She's like looking off into the distance, like in the ocean, and she's like, I've been running away my whole life, and I'm so tired of running. And it's like, I don't fucking care! We are in the 9th movie of a franchise. The guy you're talking to's been in 5 of these. Your brother's been in 3 of these. We just fucking met, your dumbass, and I don't care about you at all. And okay, you spent your life running and you're so tired of it. Okay, if you have an uprising of some shit, I don't care. And then we've got Shaw over here having a second seat of this, and like continues, and he's like, there's some things in my life I've regretted, you know, things I'm not proud of. And it's like, huh, is one of those things killing Han? The thing we're never going to talk about again, apparently? But okay, you're not proud of it, I guess. Is that going to bring back the fucking dead? Probably not. Not that anybody in this family seems to care anyway. Their main problem is building it. It's like, oh, Han's not a part of our family anymore because he died. We need to fill in that gap, though. Hey, here's the guy that killed him. Come on. And then they're just going to keep building this. Somebody made the joke that, what do you want to bet in 9, Charlize Theron becomes part of the family. That honestly would not be surprising at all, especially since they're not fucking killing the villains anymore. What is that? They shot Johnny Tran in, like, the throat in the first movie, and now they don't kill the villains anymore. If anything, they invite them to play along. I don't know. So, I don't know. What else is there? Yeah, they do the whole forced sexual tension thing between Shaw's sister and Hobbs. For no fucking reason. Because it's there, I guess. To take up more time. To put a kiss in the movie, I guess. Alright, that was worthwhile. And it comes from out of fucking nowhere, too. Because it's like, you know, he's like, hey, your sister is like, you know, one of the most badass people I've ever seen. And like, I'm gonna like fuck her and you're gonna have to deal with it. And it's like, oh no, now they're doing the whole fucking Odd Couple thing where it's like, oh no, not only were we, you know, frenemies before, but now you're fucking my sister, so that's a whole other layer to the comedy of how wacky our relationship is. Remember me, the fucking psycho that was trying to kill you 2 movies ago? Oh, what have you done? Now you're fucking my sister. But it's... I don't know. So, and the problem with this movie also, or the whole series really now, is that what I was saying before, like, I don't think it realizes what exactly, because that fucking news broke about, did you all see the headline about how everybody was going like, oh my god, they're getting so over the top, you know, oh, they're parachuting, and it's like, oh, there's a tank, and it's like, oh, there's a submarine, and it's like, oh man, before too long, we're gonna have Fast and Furious in space. And then apparently there was a headline where one of the writers said, don't, you know, count that out. Like, Fast and Furious ending up in space is totally possible, according to, like, one of the writers or something. And so it's like, they're not even, because this started with them just doing over-the-top shit, trying to see if they could top themselves. To go back to the example we used before, this is something Mission Impossible does incredibly, and always successfully. And the fact that there are 2 more Mission Impossible movies coming has me so fucking amped, because I know they will bring it, and Tom Cruise especially, will bring it as hard as he possibly can to make those things as spectacular as possible. In a way that we will be amazed at the spectacle. A spectacle unlike any will have seen by that point in time. That seems to be how this started, but now it's like, now that the memes have started, it's like they're doing it for the memes. That's it. Like, they're not necessarily trying to top themselves. They want people to get on the internet and say, whoa, Fast and Furious has this over-the-top scene. What? And just, that's what they want. They want fucking Twitter to blow up every time they release a movie. And just by making the shit dumber on purpose. So... So what do you do with this? So I was on board with this franchise for quite a while there, and then Fate kind of threw me off of it. And I know this is technically a spin-off, so we can't necessarily think immediately that 9 is going to be this bad, but I don't fucking know anymore. I'm not excited for them anymore. It's like we got 2 more Fast and Furious movies in the initial franchise. We got 2 more Mission Impossibles, and it's like there's one where it's like, yes, bring on more. Like, don't even stop at 2, keep going. And Fast and Furious, it's like, dudes, fucking, you should have let Paul Walker drive off into the sunset, do the fade to white, say for Paul like you did, and then end. And Shaw would still be in prison, where he fucking should be. So whatever. So that's what this franchise is now. That's what this movie is. So fuck it. Like I said, this has an audience, obviously, and like I said, the dumber it gets, it will continue to have an audience because some people just want that. They want to see how dumb it will get. And like I said, you're just kind of feeling them to be you're feeling them to try less when you do that. It'll look like they're amping it up. But they're just gonna take whatever they fucking see people saying on the internet and try to do that. The space thing has convinced me of this, so fuck it. So next week is a few movies. There's the Dora thing, there is the Scary Stories adaptation, and the Melissa McCarthy movie. I'm gonna probably try to see all 3 of those. I just earned a free one on my Regal card. So that'll be used for one of those. And then I can probably show off for the other 2. So, you know, to add insult to injury, I was right next door to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it's like, do you realize how hard it is? And I could hear it, like, in between, like, the trailers ending and, like, the little spaces in the movie. It's like, when the last trailer ended, I could clear as day hear DiCaprio screaming, anybody order fried sauerkraut? And it's like, can I just fucking go next door? Fuck this shit. So there it is. Alright. And then I gotta get caught up on verses. This week got, like, really, really busy, and I, like, forgot the verses. so I need to do that, and I probably need to do another one to make up for it. So all of that is coming. So, and award season's getting closer. We're in the month now when we start the videos, so that'll be exciting. I'm about halfway through my predictions now, so we'll see what they end up as. So until all that stuff, that